Good evening. My name is Cheryl Pietz. It's not pronounced anything like it's spelt. I'm here as a parent and a guardian. We have a 20-year-old mentally impaired son that through the years we have gone through hell, basically. We've had many dealings with CMH. We've had many denials from CMH. We've had many appeals from CMH. My son currently cannot live at home. He is in a group home, and I am very worried that if this becomes privatized, the group homes are going to close. He's not going to be able to get the medication that he needs because we already had problems finding a doctor who could prescribe it. My husband and I can't afford it anymore. We're basically ready to give up our guardianship because we've put so much money out already for his care that if the state takes over, what will happen? Will he be homeless? Will he be in jail? That's where most of our mental health patients are right now, and that's not housing for them. It's not getting them the help that they need, the medication that they need. I'm also worried he's in a community-based program that he goes to through community mental health, CSDD. Are those all going to close? There's probably 100 people in the program that he's in Warren. What is going to happen to all of these people that go there every day for these services? We're very worried about that. I was very unfortunate to work for social services. That's what it was called back then when Governor Engler shut down all of the mental health facilities. And it was a disaster in the state of Michigan. I don't want to see us go back to that again. I'm really nervous and very scared about that. I guess that's all I want to say. You all were very passionate when you introduced yourselves about how you care about the mental health issues. And I am hoping that those of you that are already in office will take this back to Lansing. Those of you that hopefully will get into office will also take this back and talk to your constituents and get them to fund mental health, please. Don't privatize any of this.
My name is Medhat Higazi. I'm 74 years, and I have my daughter legally blind and mentally deterioration. She's in bed 24 hours, and it's a very sad situation. And I've been taking care of her. I'm her guardian, me and my wife. And let me tell you the truth. I am very frustrated from mental health hospital. Repeated what is being said. We've been denied, we've been cut several times, we appeal, and nobody understands the effort to go through appeal process and the frustration and the judgment of the appeal. One time appeal were reversed, and they cut the allowance 50% without any reason. You go to appeal, they reverse the decision. And that happened to me on 2/12. In June 16, they cut 50%, 30 hours, they cut it to 15 hours, fine. We went to the appeal, nothing. I raised 10 questions. Why? The grounds of that. The situation did not change. The condition of my daughter did not change. In fact, it is deteriorating continuously. Nobody listened, and the decision came out. And it is sad, when you don't get the service, you don't know where to go. And you swallow your pride, and you put your head down on the floor, and you cry. You cry because the system's supposed to help you, not to defeat you. The obstruction, and I give you a simple example. They cut the hours from 30 hours to 15. 15, 14 of them for physical therapists, which given by professionals from Bowman Hospital. And they trained me and trained my wife to do that. The exercise has to be done 2 hours a day, 3 times a day. Then they come, they said, no, you and your wife cannot conduct that. Who I can hire to come 3 times to my house to do physical therapy for my daughter for 40 minutes, 3 times. 3 times, driving, coming, and in. And at the end, he gets each time $6. How we can resolve this one? And ended that we don't file anymore. We don't apply for anymore. We're just doing it without any pay or any response. You know, it's very frustration. And I tried to attend the board. I said the board is open air. It's not open air. I could not get there, okay? And I tried to reach many people, and you get you to the ombudsman to answer, and you get no answer. Then they come back and said, no, your wife cannot do the CLS time. Fine, thank you. And no agency will send somebody 3 times a day for 40 minutes for $6 each time. That's where. Now you tell me you're going to go privatization. As a consumer, I'm getting nothing. It doesn't make difference if it's private or public. Because if public does not help me, maybe private may have the flexibility and the common sense to make judgment on that. That's my story. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
My name is Shelley Rab, and my husband is guardian for his sister, who's 61 years old. I read the article in Cranes last week, and if it wasn't for that article, we wouldn't have known about this forum tonight, because there's not much information sent to make people like us aware of it. We agree with Marguerite Mitchell, who was quoted in the article, and so many others who advocate for the mentally and developmentally disabled. HMOs are not the answer. This is just going to add another layer to a system that is going to have people that are not well versed in how to care for the mentally ill or the physically disabled. We believe that properly funding mental health care is the answer. Funding cannot be an arbitrary number. It should be based on actual needs of the recipients. Ms. Mitchell is correct in saying that advocates are not being heard. My husband and I just completed our 3rd year in a row of battling with CMH in Macomb County. 3 years ago, they sent us a letter that Karen, who has been mentally ill since she was 14, had to leave her group home where she's been for 20 years. Prior to that, she was at Clinton Valley Mental Hospital. Prior to that, she lived at home with her parents, but when they both died in 1985, she had to go to the mental hospital, and then when that closed in 95, she went to a SRS level group home. 3 years ago, they decided that she had to go live in an apartment by herself. This is a woman who never has driven a car, who's never lived on her own. She's been mentally disabled since age 14, and she has physical disabilities. We appealed to the county, and because so many people from the county were there to support us, her case manager, her nurse, and her psychiatrist, they reversed their decision. A year later, we got the same letter that Karen's benefits were going to be cut off and that she had to go live somewhere else. We again appealed to the county. We had an LDR hearing, and the lady who heard us said, I'm going to wait for her psychological report to come back in a month, and then we'll make our decision. 4 days later, we had a letter in the mail from her denying Karen's services, so we appealed to the state. The day of our state level hearing, the Access Center miraculously reversed their decision with no explanation as to why. To this day, we don't know why. However, at the LDR hearing, the woman who conducted the hearing asked us if we were aware of what Medicaid was paying for Karen's care, despite the fact that they tell us it's not about the money, it's about the money. She asked us twice in that meeting if we were aware of what Medicaid paid. Karen only gets $900 a month in Social Security, and she's entitled to keep $64, and the rest goes back for her care. During that meeting, the representative from the county at the LDR hearing, despite the fact that Karen's case manager was there, nurse manager, we had reports from her psychiatrist, they go through this person-centered planning, they do these assessments twice a year, and her assessments say she is chronically mentally ill. She's never going to get better. As time goes on, she's going to need more services, not less. 6 years ago, she took 5 medications to control her symptoms. Today, she takes 13. As she's aged, she needs more care, not less. So at that meeting, at that LDR hearing that we had, I asked the hearing officer if she had read the medical reports from the doctors and the assessments that had been sent to the Access Center. Her response to us was, and I quote, "I will never forget this. We get hundreds of these reports. You can't possibly expect us to read them all." I was floored. I almost jumped across the table at her. I told her, "I expect you to read them page by page, line by line, word by word." It's actually my personal feeling and the feeling of many other people that we've become acquainted with through this system that the Access Center, to me, is one of the areas that could use some budget cuts. When we have a doctor, a psychiatrist, a nurse, a case manager make recommendations for care, that the person needs to be in their group home, that they're entitled to receive this, and then have it arbitrarily overturned by somebody at the Access Center who does not know the people, hasn't read the reports, doesn't speak to the doctors, that's just plain wrong. In our opinion, the Access Center is a level of bureaucracy that needs to go away. Because if you've got all these care people determining the course of care, why do we need somebody that's not even involved making a decision? To me, it's a gross waste of taxpayer money. This year, last year, after we went through this battle, when they reversed their decision, we met with Mr. Kinch and we met with Robin Silver of the Access Center, who assured us this wasn't going to happen to us again. In January of this year, we got another letter telling us Karen had to move. And this time, you just put her in an AFC because she's exhausted her benefits, and from a medical standpoint, she doesn't need the care. We didn't mess around with an LDR hearing. We went right to the state appeal. This year, we had to hire an attorney that cost us over $10,000 to fight for Karen's rights to stay in her home. $10,000. And God bless this man, he charged us half his normal rate because of who referred us to him. So we had 2 very emotionally draining hearings at which the county said, Karen does not need these services medically, and it's time for her to move on. In an effort to avoid this year, we tried to meet with the director of the Access Center. We contacted Mr. Kinch, who referred us to the director of the Access Center. We met with her. She told us Karen has been in a group home long enough, and it's time for her to move on. And she went further to tell us, you go ahead and file an appeal with the state, but I'm going to tell you something. They're never going to overrule what I say. So I looked at my husband and said, this meeting's over, and we filed our appeal. We had a hearing in May, we had a hearing in June, and the Access Center was overturned. The state overturned their decision, and in their written opinion was 16 pages long. Okay, but I guess what I want to say is, I believe that the county can cut some money from their budget, but there are many things the state can do to save money, but cutting funding to the mentally ill and the developmentally disabled is not the answer. These people need this money for their care. Thank you.
My name is Devin Slanik. I am the parent of a developmentally disabled son who has been disabled since birth. My son currently receives essential services from Macomb County Community Mental Health. Through person-centered planning, the services are individualized to my son's specific needs. He is learning to navigate his community and practice essential skills for growth in his everyday living, skills you and I take for granted. If there is a deficit in the service delivery, it is the severe shortage of qualified individuals to fill support staff roles to implement the person-centered plan. I believe this is in large part due to the lack of stability and lack of growth in funding to the statewide community mental health system. Funding should be priority one for the legislature. Only then can continuity of staffing for the disabled be achieved. The current community mental health system has the history, motivation, and expertise to integrate services for the most vulnerable citizens of our state. There is accountability to the consumer. Privatization of services to the for-profit HMO system will not prove more cost-effective. More importantly, however, privatization places the developmentally disabled, such as my son, at the mercy of a new bureaucracy, a one-size-fits-all bureaucracy, and a leverage services to match profits bureaucracy. Please keep the safety and well-being of this special population at the forefront of your decision-making. Thank you.
My name is Jeanette Brown, and I run an organization, co-founder and COO of an organization that provides services to adults with mental illness and developmental disabilities. And what I would like to encourage you all to do and to remind you of is that the humanity of this population, and not just what are we going to do with this population, but these people are valuable and important and an asset to our community. And to get to know somebody, that if you're going to advocate for somebody that's mentally ill or developmentally disabled, you absolutely should know people in our community as friends who are developmentally disabled or mentally ill. You can't advocate for somebody you don't know. So when you're personally invested, you have skin in the game, you're going to advocate more passionately with your heart, not just what is fiscally efficient or responsible. On the other side of these budgets and these case numbers are real faces and real stories and real lives. I had a meeting today with a consumer and a consumer's caseworker that is trying to be forced out of the mental health system because he's supposed to be rehabilitated. And I get that there's only so many dollars to go around, but this man needs these services. And what happens is these folks that have mental illness, they're supposed to be rehabilitated and they're supposed to integrate back into society, but once they progress too much, then they're penalized and their services are taken away. And then they spiral because they have no services, they have no support system, they have no structure, and then they reapply for the system that isn't efficient. It's not helpful to the consumer, and it's not helpful to the family. That keeps going in this vicious cycle when these folks need the services on a continual basis to be able to be active members of our community because they matter. They're important just like any of us are important, and they have so many great things to offer back to us. So I would just encourage you guys to, if you don't, and you may already know, and all the people that have spoken are just so inspiring, but to get to know somebody who is developmentally disabled or mentally ill, and you will be so blessed if you do, and you'll get what all these people are talking about. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to come out today. My name is Shelley Petty, and I am the mother of 3 children. I'm a resident of Sterling Heights in Macomb County. I'm the PTO president at Glenn Peters School and the PAC rep for the ISD, which is an advisory council for special education. My oldest daughter, Haley, is who brings me here. She has a condition called Rett syndrome with a secondary diagnosis of Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. Haley is a bright and beautiful girl, and she attends Glenn Peters School, and it's a center-based program here in the ISD. She's nonverbal, she's wheelchair-bound, she suffers from not 1, but 2 seizure disorders, 2 of the worst seizure disorders you could have. She has a feeding tube, she's on numerous medications, She suffers from anxiety, and she has a very hard time dealing with loud noises and crowds. Haley needs everything done for her. Every single thing we have to help her with. We've not had it easy in her 14 years. As you are aware, I'm sure, each and everything we have needed for her, we have had to fight for. Every single thing. It's a constant battle trying to convince medical panels who do not even know my daughter that certain things are medical necessities, including therapies, durable medical equipment, CLS and respite services. We have fought hard, so very hard, like all of you, for these services, and we are tired. We are so tired of fighting this fight day in and day out. After 10 years, we finally were able to get Haley on a waiver, and now she receives CLS, respite, incontinence supplies, case management services, some behavior support services, and some other things. She receives recreational therapy, massage therapy, and she's on a waiting list for music therapy. But that took us 10 years, 10 years fighting for this. Finally, I thought, my daughter is receiving things that will improve her quality of life, mentally, emotionally, physically, and socially. Our case management services, they do keep us all on the same page. We have a person-centered plan that right now is realistic and it works for our family. Our case manager and her office are very good, and they do supply us with resources that we need. But it took us forever to get there, and I don't know how long it's going to be good. With the help of Haley's caregivers, Haley's able to go out into the community. She practices communication skills with her eye-gazing machine. She's able to purchase goods, go out to dinner, go to the movies, and for any teenager, that's a really important thing. It makes her very happy, and she's able to hang with some of her friends and their caregivers and do it without mom and dad around. As I said before, I do have 2 other children. I have 7-year-old twins, to be specific, a boy and a girl, both of whom are very busy themselves with sports, dance, school, and a host of other activities. They keep my husband and I very busy, and we're able to tend to all of their needs because we have help with Haley. We would be lost without these services, and we really are grateful that in this state, in our county, we have these services to afford us through the public mental health system. I can't even imagine what I would do if they were privatized. I know my daughter will never live on her own, but with these services, she does gain some independence, and she feels better about herself, thus lessening the anxiety and the depression that she experiences almost every day. As great as this all sounds, we do know that there are flaws in our system. Our caregivers are not paid nearly enough, and it's often very hard to keep caregivers because they don't make squat. The training they are put through is sometimes redundant and really not necessary for what we need, but they are forced to take it. We are not able to pay caregivers to do respite at hospitals. When my daughter is in the hospital and admitted, my caregiver can't go sit with her. Imagine if you had a nonverbal, immobile child who couldn't tell you whether or not somebody came into their room to visit, couldn't tell you anything, couldn't stop anybody from doing anything to them. But you can't have a familiar face and a caregiver work and sit with your child in that hospital so that you can go tend to your other family members. We are not able to pay these caregivers, like I said, in the hospitals, and that really is a big problem for us. You know, our current system may not be perfect, and it does need some assistance, and it does need some changes, but it's desperately needed. Please do everything you can to make it work smarter and fiscally fit. Please don't privatize it. Do whatever you can to not privatize the system. Our consumers, they deserve this. They're our most vulnerable citizens, and it's the responsibility of our civilized society to provide these basic services to our consumers. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Wilson, and my son is Logan Wilson. He is 9 years old and attends Glen Peters School currently. Logan was born about 3.5 months early, spent 6 months in the NICU, and around 18 months we knew that something was going on. We didn't know what. He was eventually diagnosed with cerebral palsy. That's when we started the different programs through Macomb County. As of right now, Logan does not walk. He does not talk. He does understand everything. He understands people if they are around him, if they talk about him or talk to him, he gets it. Unfortunately, not being able to walk or have very limited use of his right side, he can't go and get a glass of water. He can't use a microwave. He can't do the everyday things like dressing for himself. As of last year, we finally qualified for the waiver program through the county. In this, we were able to be afforded CLS hours, respite hours, different types of therapies, things in that way. As for actually finding caregivers was a whole different story. Even when you interview caregivers, you talk to them, sometimes it's not worthwhile for them for what you need them for. They're not paid nearly enough to take care of the people they take care of for us. And we're not allowed to pay them anymore. We are on budgets, just like the state is, and I get that. But when you're talking about taking care of a human life, it's worth more than $10 or $11 an hour. In that respect, I appreciate the system. I do. It's given us more than we had the prior 8 years before that. We can't afford to pay out of pocket individually. We looked into that prior to getting the waiver. And you're looking at, for most people that want the job or are qualified for the job, they want anywhere from $20 to $25 an hour, which is telling you that our caregivers aren't getting paid nearly enough. If these services are taken away or privatized, I feel that they'll be detrimental not only to Logan, but everybody on the system, everybody dealing with the system. I feel personally that my child will be lost. My child will be a number. My child will be a dollar sign. And that's just not right at this point. I understand there's flaws in the current system, but privatization is not going to help this. Instead of being valued as he is, he's going to be valued monetarily at that point. HMOs don't know. They don't know my son. They don't care about my son. Right now, my son has a caseworker that calls him by name, that comes to my house every month, that checks up on his progress, what he does, and where he's at. I highly doubt I'm going to get someone from an insurance company, from an HMO, to come to my house and see how my son is doing. If these are privatized, more likely than not, we're going to lose those caseworker services. We're going to lose the personalization that comes with these services. The fact that I can email my caseworker, I can get a hold of somebody at the office, I can ask them questions about what's going on with our services, where we're at with certain things, and that's important to me. I've spent hours on the phone with private insurance companies looking for things. As a matter of fact, when Logan was about 3 years old, before we even had children's special health care, which we had paid into prior to this, I spent 8 months, I believe it was, fighting to get a bath chair for him because the insurance company said it wasn't a necessity. It wasn't a necessity to bathe my son. That's what I was told. So I guess I'm asking at this point for you to understand who you're dealing with, to put a face with what you're doing, to be the advocate for not only my son, but for everyone else out there on this system. And to think about it. Before you think about a bottom line, think about the people that it affects and the people that deserve to be respected in that same sense. There's a difference between budget cuts and between disengaging the respect that these people deserve. Just because they can't walk or talk or do things on their own doesn't mean they don't deserve the same respect as you and I. And that's what I'm asking you for.
Okay, I was asked to read this for a caregiver, and so I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes so you're not seeing me, and I want you to listen to the words because I'm going to read them as she wrote them. This is an open letter to the administration and legislature of the state of Michigan. It's about Medicaid redistribution and its impacts. I've been a caregiver in some capacity or another for most of my life. I did not choose this profession, it chose me. I have made more money when I worked in a different field, but I have always been drawn back to being a caregiver. For the last 3.5, almost 4 years, I've been working with Mr. Robbie. Robbie is in his middle to late 30s and has been in independent living since before I met him. Robbie was born with mild cerebral palsy and mild cognitive impairment. Robbie also struggles with limited communication skills. Despite his challenges, Robbie works at the ARC of Macomb County. He does work that many people are unwilling to do, but Robbie loves his job. He looks forward to work the way that many young children look forward to Santa Claus coming. Robbie's physical issues make him subject to seizures that may hit at any time. Because of his seizures, he needs a caregiver with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Robbie likes being involved and with people, and that leads him to deny the onset of a seizure. As his caregiver, I am trained to recognize the symptoms and take steps to prevent seizure-triggered injury. The proposed redistribution of Medicaid funding will change Robbie's life and many others' lives. Robbie is just one of many people who need our help. They do not deserve to be warehoused in group homes or worse. Change is hard on the best of us. It is even harder for people like Robbie, for whom routine is critical. The redistribution of funding will trigger a series of changes in the lives of the people receiving and giving care. I will not pretend to completely understand Robbie's world. I do not suffer from the same challenges. I know him well enough to know that it is unrealistic to believe that Robbie will be unscathed by such a change. What will happen to our society when people like Robbie are no longer able to do the jobs that other people will not do? What will happen to our society when people like Robbie no longer receive the needed care and end up hurt, living on the street, or committing some kind of crime? I further ask that what will happen to our society when people like me, caregivers, are suddenly unemployed? Will quality caregivers change professions? Will they go on unemployment? Will they become depressed and no longer able to contribute to society? Who will be there to help the people in need? I know that Michigan has a constitution that talks about non-discrimination. I also know that there is legislation that says, quote, services shall promote the best interests of the individual and be designed to increase independence, improve quality of life, and support community integration and inclusion. I ask you to evaluate the proposed changes with these concepts in mind. Are these changes truly in the best interests of the individual receiving services? I ask you to evaluate these changes while thinking about Robbie, and imagine how you would feel if you were Robbie's family member or caregiver. How might you feel if you were Robbie himself? One thought among business professionals says that people are our greatest asset. I believe that. I also believe that there cannot be a finite number of people in need. Today's healthy person may become tomorrow's neediest person. All any person asks is that we not be abandoned in our time of need. Sincerely, Kimberly Jackson. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Irene Bohe. I'm a resident in Macomb County now for over 35 years, and by trade I'm a registered nurse. But about 25 years ago, I was completing my master's in nursing when I got a diagnosis. We did related to our daughter, and at that time she had receptive, expressive, and pragmatic severe language delays, which kind of threw our world completely upside down. But I'm here basically to talk a little bit about the developmental disability side of community mental health, because back then, 25 years ago, and I think now it's also true that the responsibility for the children lays with the parents. And that means that you really don't get supportive services unless there's an extreme need, and not till, like I was told recently, to the age of 18. So we basically did have HMO back then, but for the last 25 years, they have done absolutely nothing for us. Early on, I had asked for speech and language support, and they told me that it was not in my policy. And basically, that is their line for most everything. They are, at the time I was working as a nurse, I left nursing, and with COBRA, we were paying $450 a month out of pocket. Over the years, we paid out of pocket 25 years now, and it has gone, before Obamacare, it was almost $2,000 out of pocket a month. With Obamacare, it hasn't made that much of a difference, just a couple of $100 less, and that was for a family of 4. Basically, I want to also say that we really don't feel that privatization is the answer, because basically the money will go in their pockets and we will continue to pay everything that we make to support the individuals in our families, and I think most of us are affected by some sort of disability. Our daughter went from being severely expressive, receptive, and pragmatic language delays to Asperger's syndrome in her teens, which is a very high-functioning form of autism. And recently, because they did away with that, and it's become just autism. Now, back then, in high school, you had, once you were completing it, you either stayed and were on that special ed track for 26 years, or you went on to college, and Natalie chose to do that. We have had no special ed support or any community services until about 3 years ago. I realized that Natalie needed more than what I could possibly give her. And I tried to get my foot in the door with community mental health. It took me over 2 years to get some service. We went through a lot of what you've been hearing tonight. She's not eligible. There's no medical necessity for that particular service, which just drives me out of my mind, because the people that are making these decisions are not medical professionals. And even when doctors write notes that it's medically necessary, it comes back, they've denied eligibility. So I perfectly understand what has been said here today. As a nurse coming out of training, I remember that community mental health was about the dignity and helping people to be as much as they could to their fullest potential. And I believe that's what drove me to just leave nursing and concentrate on bringing Natalie to some quality of life. And that is what I have tried to show with Natalie, because I knew once I left the planet, what would happen to her? No support. But anyways, it is my belief that the answer lies in not privatization. That is the wrong way to go. And it will only create greater social issues and also continue to put more of a financial burden on people who really can't afford. We put hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket for for nothing, basically, with HMOs. So thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Flinders. My husband, Chad, and I adopted 6 children with special needs. We started our family with Natalie, who was a newborn, added Alyssa at 2.5 years old. After that, we added Brooklyn and Mackenzie, who are biological siblings. Brooklyn was 5, Mackenzie was 18 months. We found out they had a brother that was in foster care, so we thought the siblings should be together, and we added Carter at 4 years old. A few months later, found out birth mom had a baby girl, and of course had to then make our family 6. So we have now 6 children, all with special needs. Natalie and Alyssa were both born with chromosome abnormalities. They are severely cognitively impaired. They need assistance with daily living skills, such as dressing, bathing, toileting, hygiene, eating, and many other things. They both require to be monitored 24/7 due to being unaware of the dangers around them, whether in the home or out in the community. Brooke, Carter, Mackenzie, and Grace are all half-birth siblings and were born with alcohol and drug exposure. They also have a family history of schizophrenia, bipolar, and other mental illnesses. Some of the issues and diagnoses that we live with every day are fetal alcohol syndrome, reactive attachment disorder, bipolar, oppositional defiance disorder, depression, anxiety, intermittent explosive disorder, conduct disorder, emotional regulation, lack of impulse control, self-injurious behaviors, suicidal and homicidal thoughts, and physical aggression onto self, siblings, parents, and staff. 2 of my kids are also showing signs of schizophrenia. They just don't diagnose at the age where they are, but they are being treated for schizophrenia. 2 of the 4 siblings, in addition to Natalie and Alyssa, require supervision on a 24/7 basis. When left alone, we have had fires started, inappropriate physical contact between the siblings, physical aggression, damage to the home and property, as well as elopement. We started receiving services through community mental health about 8 years ago. Our services have included sports coordination, behavioral therapy, psychiatric services, mental health therapy, occupational therapy, direct care staff for CLS, and respite services. Over the years, we have found that our service has been significantly cut, and our need for the services continue to grow as our kids get older, their problems get bigger, and their needs become more. My son was recently diagnosed with the most severe child diagnosis of conduct disorder, while his staff was reduced by 112 hours a week. Reduced 112 hours a week within a month of being diagnosed with conduct disorder. This is a child that has no concern for the life or safety of others or himself. I have to pick him up from school numerous times per week due to harmful behaviors in the classroom. In fact, just a couple days ago, he had to be picked up because he got a pair of scissors, was attempting to cut off his aide's clothes, stab his teacher, and to cut his penis off. This is all in the school setting. The school is unaware of how to handle him. They're trying to move him into another program. At home, without constant eye-on supervision, he is a danger to everyone around him. He has started numerous fires. He has come at us with a butcher knife. He's added chemicals to coffee to attempt to kill someone, tried to strangle his sister, jumped out of a moving car, and many other behaviors. This is all on a daily basis. This is my life. This is what I do every day. In May of 2015, he was hospitalized in Beaumont for weeks. They were attempting to have him placed in a psychiatric hospital. There was no hospital in Michigan that would accept him due to his level of care. No hospital, no psychiatric hospital would take my son. The professionals that work with him suggested he be admitted to Hawthorne Center, which is the only state-ran long-term psychiatric hospital for children. It was denied by community mental health, and they decided that his best bet would be to send him home with 24/7 CLS staff. He has eyes-on supervision since then. Behaviors are still there, but there's no more hospitalizations, police calls, besides one time at school, or anyone put in harm's way. This system has been working for our family. The problem is now we have been cut the 112 hours per week, and with his diagnosis, he is unlikely to improve or probably will ever be able to live a life out in the community. He has had multiple therapists that have ended up discharging him because he does not participate or cooperate with them, so their therapy has not been effective. The reality of my kids and their diagnosis is that it isn't going to the doctor for an infection where you leave with antibiotics and 10 days later you're all better. These are permanent. They will not get better. The damage is there. It's not reversible. There's some small improvements, but then they come with new behaviors and new issues. My family needs help. It is impossible to have my eyes on 4 kids at all hours of the day. I need to sleep. I need to shower. I need to grocery shop. I need to do all of the other things that you do to make your house run smooth. I can't do that while watching 4 kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes. I'm sorry. I feel as if some of the funds are wasted, but if we could change some of the ways we run things as far as going paperless, things like that, I believe that that would help. I guess I'm going to get to the nitty-gritty part of this. I believe also that having private insurance companies take over for CMH sounds like an absolute nightmare. Having, in general, insurance companies work towards lowering their risks by preventative health care, immunizations, many other ways to lower the risk of their clients. Higher risk patients usually have higher costs or rates. I don't believe insurance companies have the mindset to work with a community that has to go out and look for the clients with the highest needs and that involve the highest risks. I do not believe that sending this community to people, to private insurance companies would benefit our special needs population at all. Please understand just that as a mom of 6 beautifully, differently abled children, I am here to help their lives be lived to the fullest, and I can't do that without the help of community mental health.
My name's Jeff McDowell. I'm a caregiver in Macomb County. I shortened up my whole book to 1 page. Everybody has already taken all my things. I could say ditto on most of that. Working in this business is not easy. It's not perfect. There are things we can do to improve, although I believe going to insurance companies would be a disaster. Right now, the demand is high. Your need is immediate. There's a low supply on the service side, I think. I think a lot of you have said that. If we and slow, you know, if you can find anyone, it's a very slow process. Improving that, I think, would help. My understanding is, because I worked at several different companies, is everyone is saying, who else do you know that can be a caregiver? Do you have anyone? And I can only put in so many hours. I also need to sleep. But I think the need is high, and, you know, the number of hours that are already authorized are not being covered. Concentrating on covering those services that are already authorized, I think would be a great relief.
Hello, my name is Nancy Mendenhall. In approximately 2014, all of the CMHSPs and PIHPs across Michigan received the sizable state general fund reduction. On behalf of the 35+ daily attending members who attend Crossroads Clubhouse in Warren, Michigan, we are concerned and want to impress upon you today that this funding cut has had serious and long-lasting effects on the well-being of many people with mental illness who are striving to recover and desire to fully participate in our communities. Since 2014, as a result of this significant cut, funds for services to persons without Medicaid, Healthy Michigan, are now very limited. Since this cut, Crossroads Clubhouse was directed to eliminate or reduce 50% of our daily attending clubhouse members who do not qualify for Healthy Michigan, Medicaid, or are classified as Medicaid spend down with no means to pay the spend down requirement. Crossroads Clubhouse embraces a clubhouse model of psychosocial rehabilitation, offering a comprehensive and dynamic program of support and opportunities for people with severe and persistent mental illnesses. Crossroads Clubhouse, along with all clubhouses, is an evidence-based practice, has proven to decrease hospitalizations, to shorten the length of stay of hospitalizations, to decrease arrest, to help members find meaningful work in their communities, and most importantly, they report a higher degree of satisfaction with their lives. We are in possession of hundreds of signatures from clubhouses across Michigan whom want the money to remain with CMHs and want all people suffering from severe and persistent mental illness to attend their local clubhouse. We urge you to support the efforts that we outline here to support the CMH system, ability to serve all those whom are in need of treatment, support, and engagement. Please no 298. Sincerely, the membership and support staff of Crossroads Clubhouse, Warren, Michigan. And Bruce Denton is here as my support.
Yes, okay. With my family, mental health is not a stranger. My sister was institutionalized at Pontiac State Hospital for 30 years of her life. My Aunt Barbara was in Lafayette Clinic in the 50s. My dad had two uncles that were mentally ill, and my cousin Cindy had a father who had mental illness. And I know, I won't take much time. I just want to say that I live on my own now, and I have for quite some time. And they made a cut to my budget, and it's been very troubling to me to try to make things work out. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, they cut the funds Nancy was talking about and they were the state cutting funds to the county, and I lost my doctor, my case manager, my nurse, and my clubhouse, and okay. Oh yes. Now they did say when they made these cuts that I had the right to repeal it, but unfortunately I was at my apartment and I fell behind and I wasn't up to sticking with the work, work that to fill out the forms, and it's very difficult. Let me see here. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, I've been living, see, I went through the whole system of
hospitalization, group homes, TLH home where you learn skills, and then I went on to be in the SIP programs where you live in an apartment with a roommate. And now my roommate died 10 years ago, so now I've been living alone now for 10 years. So I'm completely cut from the system. My only thing I have with the system, of course, is I don't have a psychiatrist even anymore. I mean, but I have a nurse practitioner type of thing, and he can give me my meds. And then I have a Christian therapist I see who can see me with just the Medicare, no out-of-pocket cost. But it's been very troubling to me to, and I'm hoping and praying. I have friends at church as well as my other friends that are hopefully trying to help me stay in my own apartment independent, And, I guess I would be more, also I want to say this, that when I was in the hospital, I was a late, I didn't get ill till I was 28, and there was a time in that hospitalization where I was in a diaper and I couldn't feed myself. And I do believe Jesus answered prayers on my behalf of my family and friends. And also my sister, the pastor prayed with her. And, thank God she is not in a state institution now down to the end her life. She's the oldest daughter. She's 63. I'm the middle of us. I'm 30. 30. No. No, I'm 60. And then my brother Kyle's the youngest, 55. And my dad died 2 years ago. He's up at Holly at the veterans funeral. And my mom's in a dementia in a nursing home. But I just want you to know that, it's hard to put a voice to because when you're hit by this stuff, even when you're articulate or able to speak, public speak, whatever, it's so hard to get across to people how it feels to go through what we go through. And, but I hope that my short talk here was helpful for you.